A very good day to our lovely grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's mathematical literacy lesson. My name is Mampani Kekana, and remember that this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with the Sibona Discovery Center. Boys and girls, that time has arrived. That time that we have all been waiting for, it's here, the time for our prelim examination. I'm sure you are so excited and you are ready and you can't wait to write your prelim question papers. Remember, the prelim question papers will be an indication of whether you are ready for the final examination or not. So just make sure that you prepare yourself and make sure that you practice and revise all the work that has been done since the beginning of the year. So as I said that it is that time of the year, so we are done with the ATP, we have covered everything. We should be able to answer any question that comes on our way. We should be able to answer any question, boys and girls. We've got no excuse because your teachers, I'm sure they did the right thing. They covered everything that is supposed to be covered. So in today's lesson, we are going to relook at some of the sections or subsections that we have already done. Remember, it is just a revision. So as I will be busy explaining the answers, maybe some of you you'd be already ahead of me because you know the answers or you know how to do the answers. So in today's lesson, we're going to look at summarizing data. Summarizing data with the focus on quartiles, box and whisker, as well as percentiles. Okay, we might still look at some part of summarizing data, but actually our main focus in today's lesson is quartiles, box and whisker, as well as percentiles. As I'm talking now and then I'm saying these words, quartiles, you must have an idea of what I'm talking about. When I say box and whisker, you must have an idea of what I'm talking about. When I say percentiles, you must have an idea of what I'm talking about. So in today's lesson, we're going to focus on that. So as I've indicated at the end of this lesson, you should be able to define terminologies, all terminologies that are used under summarizing data. And then you must be able to summarize the collected data. So in this case, it's going to be any given data that will be given to you. You must be able to summarize it. Summarize it by what? By using measures of central tendency. What do we mean by measures of central tendency? We'll look at that later on, as well as measures of spread. When we talk about measures of central tendency, you must know what we are referring to. When we talk about measures of spread, you must also know what we are referring to. And then you must also be able to summarize collected data or the given data. Okay, collected data or the given data. Maybe they might give you the mass of learners or the height of learners. Okay, then and so on and so on. So you must be able to summarize that. So with regard to measures of spread, we are referring to range, quartiles, interquartile range, and percentiles. And then again, we must also be able to analyze and interpret the summarized data. Once we have summarized the data, we must be able to explain what it means, what that summary means to us. And then we must be able to interpret and analyze box and whisker plot or box and whisker diagram, as some of you will say it. Okay, now before we move on with our lesson, we just want to check your knowledge. Are you ready for the prelim examination? Can you answer any question that would come on your way? So that is why we have to look at the following. So in this, it's a pre-assessment. We want to check your pre-knowledge. Sorry. What do you know about the following? So it's very simple. It's very easy. It is also possible that in the examination, you might get something like this. So for this one, it's match column A with column B. So what is happening in this case is we are given the terminologies and we are given the possible definitions. Okay, but they are not aligned. So we have to match. We have to match the terminology and its own explanation or its own definition or its own relevant explanation. So now the first one, we are given the mean. But before you even look at the explanation on the right hand side or the definition on the right hand side, you must have an idea so that you don't struggle to find the relevant explanation. We did the mean. What do you think the mean is according to the given explanation? If we look at all the explanations that are given under column B, we've got the first one, which is measure of central spread that divides an arranged set of data into 100 equal parts. No. The next one is the value or item that appears most frequently in a data set or in a set of data. That is no, that is not the mean. C is a diagram that displays 5 number summary. That is minimum, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and maximum. Is it this one? Definitely not. The next one is divide and arrange set of data into 3 points. That is lower quartile, middle quartile, which is the median, and upper quartile. Definitely not. Then we go to the next one, is calculated by adding all values together and dividing by the total number of values in the data set. Okay, so you can see that the mean, we know that that is where we take all the values, we add them together and divide them by the number they are. So it means A will match with the explanation of capital letter E under column B. Then we go to median. Median, we have to start all over again. Measure of central spread, no. Is the value or item that appears most frequently in a data set? No. A diagram that displays 5 number summary? No. Divide and arrange set of data into 3 equal points, that is the lower quartile and so on? No. Calculated by dividing all values together, this one we have already said it's for number 1. So if you look at F, the middle value in a set of data that has been arranged, the middle value, or in some cases they will say the middlemost value. So in this case, the median goes with capital letter F. Then we go to mode. We say measure of central spread, no. Is the value or item that appears most frequently in a data set. Value, we are referring to numbers. So if you are given a list of numbers, then the number that appears the most will be mode. But let's say if you are given letters, or you are given colors and so on, then we'll say the color that appears the most or the letter that appears the most will be the mode. That is why in this case we say it is the value or item that appears the most. So the mode or mode will go with capital letter B. Okay, so far so good. And then of course we've got percentiles. You did percentiles. Of course, everything that we are doing in MathLead, we must be able to explain it. We must be able to explain it even if we have to use our own words. But what is important is we must be able to explain it. But luckily in this case, the possible explanations are given. So percentiles, measure of central spread that divides an arranged set of data into 100 equal parts. It divides a set of data into 100 equal parts. So that is percentiles. So percentiles will go with capital letter A. Then we've got quartiles. Okay, quartiles, it's almost the same as percentiles if you think about it. Quartiles. But what is a quartile? Measure of spread that divides an arranged set of data. So we have already taken that one. Is the value? Definitely not. We have already used this one. We've already used this one. And then C, we haven't used it, but let's check. A diagram that displays, so quartiles cannot be a diagram. So we skip that one. So the next one is divide an arranged set of data into 3 points, that is lower quartile, middle quartile, and upper quartile. So this is the possible answer for number 5. So it's D. Okay, and then we've got box and whisker. Okay, now for box and whisker, we have to look at the possible definition. It is a diagram. It is a diagram or a graph that displays 5-number summary that is minimum, because we know that on a box and whisker, we should be able to see minimum, we should be able to see quartile 1, we should be able to see quartile 2, quartile 3, and maximum. So this one is obviously it's going to be letter C. Sorry, so it must be letter C. So we've got all, we have actually managed to match the terminologies under column A, and there are possible explanations under column B. So luckily in this case, we are given an equal number of terminologies as well as an equal number of explanations. So it means in the end, if you are left with one, then in the end, if you are left with only one possible explanation, it will definitely match with the last terminology. But in some cases, the examiner might give you 6 terminologies under column A, but they'll give you maybe 7 or 8 possible explanations under column B, so that you don't guess, so that you choose the correct terminologies. In other words, you are not supposed to guess. You have to be sure that you are choosing the correct relevant explanations or definitions. So that is that with regard to the pre-assessment. We're just checking your knowledge. What do you know up to so far? Right. And then just to refresh your memory in terms of the explanation of some terminologies or concept in this case, we spoke about summarizing data. What do we mean when we say summarizing data? Summarizing data, it means the collected data or the given data can be summarized by using measures of central tendency. So we need to know what do we mean, or what are the measures of central tendency, as well as spread, measures of spread. What do you mean by measures of central tendency? The measure of central tendency is a single value that shows a central position of a data. Like if you are given a list of values, and then in the end you have to calculate mean. Mean is going to be only one value. Or if you have to calculate median, it's going to be only one number. So that is why we say it's a single value. Now, those single values would be referred to 3 types of measures of central tendency. In this case, we are talking about mean, we are talking about median, and we are talking about mode. So when we say mean, we know that it's a measure of central tendency. Median is a measure of central tendency. Mode is also a measure of central tendency. And it's very important to know which one is which, because some of you are actually confusing the 3. Okay, we know that in some cases when you get into the examination, you cannot actually remember everything, but it's very important that when we come to these 3 terminologies or these 3 measures of central tendency, you know which one is which. We don't want a situation where they ask you to calculate median and then you calculate mean, or where they say determine the mode and then you calculate the mean. So let us please be sure about this. Then With regard to the advantage and disadvantages of central tendency, boys and girls, this one I'm just going to simplify it for you in terms of the possible question that the examiner might ask you. Remember, the examiner might ask you to determine mean, median, and mode. Okay, maybe the first question, let's say, for instance, the first question, maybe they might say 3.1, determine the median, 3.2, determine the mode, and then 3.3, determine the mean. After you have calculated, the examiner will say, which of the three, which one of the three will best describe what you would have calculated? Which one will be the best description? Which one will be the best description in terms of the data that would be given? Now, to make it easier, we say if the examiner has to ask you that question, we will always choose the mean if there is no outlier. If there's no outlier in that data set, there's no outlier. What do we mean by an outlier? An outlier is a value that is too big or too small compared to the rest of the numbers, okay, or to the rest of the values. Like, for instance, in a class, if you write a test and then most of you are getting the marks in a 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe it was a very difficult test, and all of a sudden there's this brilliant learner who got 99 or who got 98. So that learner is too far compared to the other learner. In other words, that learner has got the highest mark compared, or that learner's mark is too high compared to the rest of the learners. So we say if the examiner has to ask you which measures of central tendency will be the best, and then you look at your data set, if there is an outlier, or if there's no outlier, let me put it in that way. If there is no outlier, we'll say the mean. But if there's an outlier, we'll say the median. That is why you see in this case, they say it is affected by an outlier. So an outlier will actually, if we have to choose the mean, we might not get a true reflection of the summary. So if an outlier is part of the numbers, or if a data set has got an outlier, you will say you'll choose the mean. But if there's no outlier, you'll choose the mean. And then what about the mode? The mode, we only choose it if the type of data that is given is categorical. Let's say the colors are given, okay, or the letters are given. They say which measure of central tendency will be the best. In that case will be the mode. So the mode, we only choose it if the type of data that is given is categorical. Categorical, it means the information that is given is in the form of categories like colors, okay? So that is how I can summarize the advantages and disadvantages of the mean. For the mean, we choose it if there is no outlier. Median, we choose it when there's an outlier. Mode, we choose it when the type of data that is given is a categorical data. Okay, then we spoke about measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency. Now we look at measures of spread. Spread, it means how far or how close the data is. Measures of spread. Now, with regard to measures of spread, we say sometimes it's called measures of dispersion. Is the value that gives an indication of how data is spread out. Like, if learners are writing a test, we expect learners to get more or less the same marks. Maybe the lowest learner might be 31, the next learner will be 32, 34. Or if maybe the test was very easy, we'll expect maybe the lowest learner to be 80, the next one to be 82, 83, 84, 91, and 2. So we'll say those marks are very close to each other. That is what we expect. But in some cases, you might find that, yes, but this test was not actually very easy for everyone, okay? But again, there was this brilliant learner who managed to get almost 100%. So you will see that that learner's mark will be very far from the others. So when we talk about the measures of spread, we are referring to how far or how close the marks are to each other. So, but how do we determine that? We look at the range. Okay, we know that the range means the biggest value or the highest value minus the lowest value. So if you've got a situation where we've got a learner who's got, let's say, 20%, or a learner who's got 10%, and we've got a learner who's got 90%, you will see that those marks are very far from each other. So in that case, we are going to use the range. And then, of course, quartiles, which divide a data set into 4 equal parts. Interquartile range, we all know that it's quartile 3 minus quartile 1, and then percentile. So when we talk about measures of spread, we spoke about measures of central tendency, which is mean, median, and mode. Measures of spread, we're referring to range and interquartile range. Range, quartiles, interquartile range. Actually, the main ones are range and interquartile range. Okay, range and interquartile range. That is what we mean by measures of spread. And then, of course, quartiles. A quartile divides an arranged set of data into 3 points. That is the lower quartile, middle quartile, and the upper quartile. And the lower quartile, we know that we sometimes call it quartile 1. And then the middle quartile, which is the median, we can also call it quartile 2. And then the upper quartile is quartile 3. But the other thing that is not indicated here, you must also know that if we are talking about quartile 1, it's lower quartile. Okay, so we can say quartile 1, or we can say lower quartile. But in terms of percentiles, we can also say it's 25th percentile. So if the examiner has to indicate 25th percentile, if the examiner has to say determine the 25th percentile, you must know that the examiner is referring to quartile 1 or to lower quartile. And then with regard to median, the examiner might use 50th percentile. The examiner might say determine the 50th percentile. Then you must know that 50th percentile is the same as the median, or quartile 2. And then this one, the examiner might say determine the 75th percentile. So you need to know that 75th percentile, upper quartile, and quartile 3 are referring to the same thing. Okay, then of course interquartile range. Interquartile range is the difference. Okay, in MathLead, if you have to determine a difference, it means you are going to take the bigger value, you subtract the smaller value. So in this case, it's the difference between upper quartile and lower quartile, the difference between 75th percentile and 25th percentile, or the difference between quartile 3 and quartile 1. So it's very, very important to know that. Okay, then we also spoke about measures of central spread that divides an arranged set of data into 100 equal parts. There we are referring to percentiles. And then box and whisker, it's a diagram that displays 5 number summary, that is minimum, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and maximum, because it is also possible that the examiner might ask you to explain. And then, of course, box and whisker interpretation. Remember, with regard to box and whisker, you would not be expected, or let me put it in this way, we do not expect an examiner to ask you to draw a box and whisker. Okay, that is not according to assessment guideline. We expect an examiner to give you box and whisker diagram or box and whisker plot, and they ask you questions based on it. But still, you need to be able to have a picture of box and whisker, because in most cases they will indicate a number line. Okay, so you must be able to interpret. Then whatever is on the same level as on the number line, it's a minimum. Okay, whatever is on the same level, okay, on the number line, this will be lower quartile or quartile 1 or 25th percentile. And then on the same level, this will be a median. So if I indicate this minimum, which is the lowest value, and we've got quartile 1, and then we've got quartile 2, we've got quartile 3, and then we've got maximum. So whatever, if a number line is given, then you must be able to take that information that is on the box and whisker and compare it with what is on the number line. If it is on the same level as this line here, which is the minimum, then on the number line it must be minimum. Then lower quartile is quartile 1. It might be quartile 1, it might be 25th percentile. And this one is quartile 2 or median. And then this one is upper quartile or quartile 3, and that one is maximum. In some cases, we say this is 25th percentile, and this is 50th percentile, and this is 75th percentile. If the examiner has to ask you for the 75th percentile, then you must know that it is the same as quartile 3. If the examiner has to ask you for the 50th percentile, it's the same as quartile 2 or median. But in most cases, the box and whisker goes with the number line. If it doesn't go with the number line, the numbers will be indicated or the values will be indicated on the box and whisker. So it's very important to know the picture of box and whisker plot. Okay, so far we have actually discussed the background of today's lesson, that is about summarizing data. So we're just warming up, just refreshing your memory in terms of the questions that we are going to do. Okay, so but that information that we have discussed, it's very important to know, and it's very important to know how to use it. Okay, then these are the possible or these are the typical exam questions. These are the questions that were taken from previous question papers. Now, as I said at the beginning, boys and girls, we have now covered everything. We have now covered everything. So you should not have any excuse not to answer any question, because your teachers have actually covered everything. They have actually prepared you for this examination. You should be in a position where you can answer any question, like the following questions. So this one was taken from Eastern Cape paper 1 September 2024. It means if you take any question paper, prelim question paper, it's either Gauteng province, Eastern Cape, Limpopo, any other province, because at the end of the year you are going to write the same papers, so the preparation should be the same. The first one is calculate the median percentage inflation rate for 2022. Okay, I almost made a mistake of what some of you are doing, because we have to read the information that is given. In this case is Mr. Gareth lives in South Africa. For the past 2 years, he traveled to different countries in Africa. The table alongside shows the inflation rate of 10 countries in Africa for 2022 and 2023. Each country has a different inflation rate and it changes from year to year. Use the table to answer the questions that for. So we have to use the information that is given in it. Calculate the median. The most important word in this case is the median. We can see that all these values are the percentages, and then they represent inflations. Calculate the median. What do we know about the median? The median must be the middlemost value of a set of data. So it means for this one in 2022, we've got this set of data. Okay, 10 countries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What are we supposed to do to get the median? The first thing that we need to do is to arrange the data from the smallest to the biggest. So we start with the smallest one. The smallest one in this case is 2.9. So I'm going to write it down 2.9. And then after 2.9, The next one is, if I look at this, 2.9, then I've got 8.2. Okay, so you can just draw one line on 8.2. Okay, I would advise you to just draw one line, because if you scratch it out in the end, when you realize that you missed one number, then you might not be able to see it. So it's better if you just draw one line, then you know that this one I've seen it. Okay, then after 8.2, I see 8.3. Okay, then after 8.3, I see the next one is 9.1. So I've got 9.1, draw a line. After 9.1, I see 12.4, I see 10.2, 12.8, 10.1, but I've got 10.1. Okay, so 10.1 is the next one, and then after 10.1, I've got 10.2. Okay, 10.2, and then after 10.2, I've got 12.4. Okay, and then after 12.4, I've got 12.8. Okay, after 12.8, I've got 12.9. So there's 12.9, and then after 12.9, I've got 21.3. Okay, so remember, after writing down all the values, you still need to count. Originally there were 10, so I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have to count them again so that I can check if there is no shortage or I didn't indicate more values, because I'm not supposed to have 9, or I'm not supposed to have less than 10, and I'm not supposed to have more than 10. So in this case, I have to use all of them. So it's 10 of them. Okay, so I have arranged them from the smallest to the biggest. Then the next question you need to ask yourself, how many values are here? There's 10 of them. Is 10 an even number or an odd number? Okay, if you don't know what I mean by this will be a homework. But in the case of even, I mean 10, it's an even number. I'm just going to say 10 is an even number, and an even number means it is divisible by 2. So if it's an even number, it means I'm going to have 2 values in the middle. If I've got an odd um, number of values, then I'm going to have only 1 value in the middle. So in this case, there's 10 of them, so I'm going to have 2 in the middle. It's up to you on how you count it. If I cancel 1 on this side, I cancel 1 on the other side. If I cancel 1 on this side, I cancel 1 on this side. This side, this side, this side, this side. But if I have to cancel this one and this one, I won't have anything. So it means these are the middle numbers. But we don't say the answer is 10,1 and 10,2. What do? We take 10,1, we add it with 10,2, and then we say all over 2. 10,1, we add them together, 10,1 plus 10,2. Very important. Then you take your calculator. You say 10,1 plus 10,2. Boys and girls, very important, you press the equal sign. 10,1 plus 10,2, press the equal sign to get the answer. In this case, my answer is 20.3. So let's say this is 20.3, and then I divide it, still divided by 2, and then I get divided by 2, then I get 10.15. So 10,15 is the answer. 10,15. I know that some of you might not prefer to indicate this step because you do everything on the calculator, but you just need to be careful that when you say 10.1 plus 10.2, you press the equal sign first before you say divided by 2. Okay, and please make sure that you know how to use that calculator. This is very important. It's very important that the very same calculator that you are using when you practice or when you prepare for your examination, it is the very same model that we are going to use in the examination. Please, very, very important. Some learners get frustrated when they get into the examination. They are using totally different model of a calculator, and then they get frustrated because they can't use that calculator. So it's very important that the very same calculators that you are using in preparation for the examination, it is the very same calculator that you are going to use to write the examination. So that is the answer for number 1.1. The next one, the information is still the same. And then 1.2, it's the mean percentage inflation rate for 2023, it's 11.14%. Calculate the missing value P by showing calculations. Wow. You know, most of us are used to a situation where the examiner will give you values and then they say determine the median or determine the mean or calculate the mean. Because that one is very easy. You just take all the values that are given, you add them together, you divide them by the number they are. But if you look at this question, this is different. The way the question has been asked, it is actually different. In this case, they are not asking you to calculate the mean. They give you the mean and they ask you to find the missing value. Look at this. In this table, we've got 1, 2, okay, just check under 2023, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 values. 9 values are indicated in that table. The 10th value is P. And then in this case, they say calculate the missing value P. We have to find the value of P. If we knew what the value of P was, we would just add up and divide by 10. But in this case, if we have to add up everything and divide by 10, we won't be able to find the answer because we don't know what the value of P is. So think about this. We all know that mean means the sum of values divided by number of values. Okay, this is the formula. Remember, this is actually the formula. The examiner might also ask you to write down the formula. How do we calculate the mean? We take the sum, that means we are adding. We add all values and we divide by the number they are. But let us look at this. In this case, we are not going to calculate the mean because the mean is given, it's 11.14. Okay, for the sake of calculations, I'm just going to leave the percentages out. This case, I'm going to have 11.14 is equals to, what are the sums? The sums are, I say 8.9 plus 9.0 plus 9.3 plus 9.3 again, and then plus 4.1 plus 10.4 plus 10.6, and then after 10.6 is plus 10.2, and then plus P. Okay, look at this, is 8.9, 9.0, 9.3, 9.3 again, 4.1, 10.4, 10.6, 10.2, and then the next one, I don't have the value there, I've got P. So I'm just going to say plus P. And then, of course, I'm going to say plus, the last one is 25. Okay, and then we know that I'm supposed to divide by, so I'll say divided by 10. Okay, it is 10. The numerical values in this case, the numbers were 9. But if I have to include the value of P, I would divide by 10. So in this case, I'm supposed to say all this, add them together and divide it by 10, but I don't know what the value of P is. So what I'm going to do is, it's 11.14, which is still on the left-hand side. I'm going to add up all the numerical values, all the numbers there. So if I add the numbers, I've got 8.9 plus 9.0 plus 9.3 plus another 9.3 plus 4.1 plus 10.4 plus 10.6 plus 10.2, and then of course plus 25.5. Okay, then I'm getting 97.3. So I've got 11.14 is equals to 97.3, and then I still have plus P. Okay, so and then it's everything still over 10. So 11.14, it's this one, is the mean, is the value of the mean which was given, or which is given. And then on the right hand side, I have to add up all the numbers that are given there. When I add them up, I get 97.3, but I still have to keep the P. I can't add them together. 97.3 plus P will always be 97.3 plus P. Okay, then I have to find the value of P. Okay, then from this one, we know about cross multiplication. Cross multiplication, it means I'm going to take this and multiply by that, and then I'm taking this, I multiply. What is at the bottom, I multiply with what is on top on the other side. Bottom and the top. So if I multiply, I'll say 97.3 plus P will still give me 97.3 plus P equals to, if I take 11.14, I multiply with 10, then I'm going to get 100, and so it's 11.4 multiplied by 10, then I get 114. So it's 100 and sorry, it's 11.14. So I'm almost made a mistake. 11.14 multiplied by 10, and then I get 111.4. 111.4. Okay, so I've got 97 plus 97.3 plus P equals to 111.4, and then from there to find the value of P, I say P equals to 111.4. I take 97.3 to the other side. In this case, is to the right hand side. If I take a number to the other side of the equal sign, it changes the sign. So in this case, it's going to be 97.3. Negative 97.3. So 111.4 minus 97.3. Then if I take the calculator, 97.3 subtracted, then I get 111.4, and then I subtract 97.3. I get 14.1. So the value of P is 14.1. So the value of P is 14.1. So, boys and girls, this is one of those tricky questions, and then you need to be careful when you get into an examination, especially if they ask you this type of questions. So you should expect this type of questions instead of just expecting straightforward questions, like in this case where they would say determine the mean or calculate the mean. They might give you the mean and say calculate the missing value. So you must go and look at this type of questions as well. Right, then the next question is the table alongside shows the total population of each African country Mr. Gareth traveled for the past 2 years, and then it's the range of the total population is 22, or sorry, in 2022 were 104,535. Okay, determine the missing value B. That was the lowest total population for the 2 years. Right. Now, boys and girls, the other thing that we need to be careful about in this type of question is you will see it indicates total population of 10 countries in Africa in millions. In millions. It means if you see Morocco and then you see 38,134, we know that in Medley, okay, in Medley, this is 38,134. 38,134, but it means it's 38,134 million. It is not 38,134 people, but it's 38,134 million. It's like if I say we've got 1 1,5. Okay, it is impossible to have 1,5 people. We can't have 1 and a fraction of a percent, but it is possible to have. If I say this is in millions, it means this is 1,5 million. If I say 1,5 and I say this is in millions, so this one, if they say it's millions, this is 38,134 million. This is 57,085 million. But if I want to write it as an ordinary number, 1,5 million is the same as 1,500,000. How do I get 1,500,000? You just take 1.5, you multiply by 1 million. But what if I've got 38,134? Okay, and they say this is in millions. Okay, if this is in millions, it means I will take 38,134, I multiply by million, so it's going to give me 38,134,000. Please try it with your calculator. Just take 38,134 and multiply it by 1 with 6 zeros. 38,134, you multiply by 1 million. It's going to give you 38,134,000. So it means this number that you see there, it means 38,134,000. Okay. Then let's go back to our question. The range of the total population in 2022 were 104,535. Now, the values in the table are written without millions. So whatever we have to calculate that is in the table, we have to write it without millions. So we are going to forget about millions for now because we are looking for the value of B. Now, this is one of those tricky questions. It is not as straightforward. We all know that if the examiner had to ask you to calculate the range, what would you do? You would take the biggest value and you subtract the smallest value. Or you take the highest value, you subtract the smallest value. Now, it means the range is, I'm just going to say the H for the highest and then L for the lowest. And most of us are used to a situation where the highest value can be found and the lowest value can be found. And then we determine the range. But this one is a tricky one. What did the examiner do? The examiner gave us 104,535 and says that 104,535, it's actually the value of the range. So when we do the substitution, we say 104,535 equals to. Do we know the highest value? Let us look at the information. The range of the total population were 104,535. If they say the range is this, it means when you take the highest value, you subtract the lowest value, you must get 104,535. Then they say determine the missing value, B. That was the lowest. So B is actually the lowest. So we say the lowest value is B. Then we say minus B. Okay. If B represents the lowest value, then what is our highest value? Then obviously our highest value will come from all these values. If you look at all this, we've got the highest value is 106. So I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to have enough space there. So I'm going to rewrite 104,535 equals to 106,981 minus B. Okay, so what I did is I've indicated the range. This is the range. This is the value of the range. The highest value, according to all this value, this is the obvious highest. And then B, I don't know what B is, but I know that B represents the lowest value. Then now I have to find the value of B. Okay, so it means 104,535 equals to 106,981. So now to find the value of B, we need to subtract. We have to leave B on one side of the equal sign. We have to leave B on one side of the equal sign. But to make it easier, because we know that B usually must be on the left hand side, we prefer that B should be on the left hand side. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to exchange the values. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take B to the left hand side and I take 104 to the right hand side. What do we know about a number that we take to the other side? It changes the sign. So if I take minus B, it's going to be B on the left hand side, and then I still have 106,981. 106,981 did not change the sign because it's still on the right hand side. Okay, I want to keep B only on the left hand side, so I take 104 to the right hand side. So when this 104,535 goes to the right hand side, it becomes negative 104,535. Then B equals to, then I take my calculator, 106 okay, 106,981 minus 104,535. Then this is what I'm getting. I'm getting about 2.446. 2,446. That is the value of B. 2,446. So it means instead of B, it must be 2,446. And then indeed, if you compare all these values, you will see that B is the smallest of them all, because the examiner indicated that whatever value of B that you find, it must be the smallest. So in this case, the answer is 2,446. Okay, so you see this type of question again, it is also possible. It is not one of those straightforward. So it means in this formula, the examiner can give you the value of the range. It can give you the examiner can give you the value of the range. He or she can also give you the lowest value, and then they ask you to find the highest value. Okay, so in this formula, they can give you any two of the three, and then they ask you to determine one. They can give you the highest value and the lowest value, they say determine the range. Or they can give you the range, they give you the highest value, and they say determine the lowest value. So you must also be ready. So please make sure that you also go and look at more of this type of questions. Okay, then number 2.2. Determine the probability of randomly selecting a country from the list with a total population of less than 15 million in 2023. Give your answer as a percentage probability. Okay, but in this case, they specify give your answer as a percentage. Remember, a probability can be written as a fraction, it can be written as a decimal, and it can also be written as a percentage. Now, how do we determine the probability in this case? We are going to use 2023 because it's very important that we choose the correct table. 2023 is this one. Then how many of these values are less than 15 million? Less than 15 million. Okay. Remember, all these values are in millions. This is 38,134 million. Now 38,134, the moment it says 38, it means it's bigger than 15. This one is 57,085. So it means it is actually 57,085 million. And this one is 46,006. So this is actually about 46,066 million. And then we've got 7,132. This is actually 7,132 million. So how many of these values are less than 15 million? The ones that are less than 15 are for Botswana. Okay, and then We also have Libya. Okay, we've got Tunisia, less than 15, and then we've got Republic of the Congo. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All this, selecting a country, all these countries have a population less than 15 million. Then I say the probability is 4 over 10. 4 over 10 is a fraction. The examiner might say, write the answer as a simplified fraction. Okay, or write the answer as a common fraction. Okay, I mean simplified common fraction, simplified fraction, let me put in that way, or decimal fraction. In this case, they say write your answer as a percentage. Because this one is a fraction, we just take it and say multiply by 100%, and this will give us 40%. Okay, probability is one of the easiest questions in the question paper, so you cannot afford to get it wrong as well. So like in this case, the probability is 40%. If you had to leave it as 4 over 10, the examiner would not give you the total mark, because the examiner specified, said the answer must be in the form of a percentage. Okay, then the next question. It's the number of entries of selected subjects registered with the Department of Basic Education in 2020 and 2021 are listed alongside. The table provides information on the number of candidates who registered in 2020 and 2021. Some values are omitted. Use the table alongside to answer the questions that follow. So the information is given. Then number 3.1 is calculate the value of Q, the number of entries of mathematics in 2020. Right? If we go to the table, we can see that in 2020, mathematics, they have indicated Q. They have indicated letter Q there. So we have to find the value. So, but you can see in 2020, the value is not given. In 2021, they say it's 259,143. And then increase, they say this is an increase by 25,882. 25,882. So from 2020 to 2021, the number increased by 25,882. So we need to find the number in 2020. So if you think about this, you will see that the number of candidates or the number of entries were actually 25,882 less compared to 2021. So to get that value, we'll say for 2020, we just take 259,143. 259,143. We make it less by 25,882. Okay, so if you take your calculator, 259,143, and then we minus 25,882, then it means it was 233,000. 263,261. Okay, so it means in 2020 the number was 233,261, and then in 2021 259,143. In simple terms, the number in 2021 was 25,882 less compared to 2021. Right, the next one, it's the mean total number of entries for 2021 is 260,136. Calculate P, the value of the number of entries for geography. Yes, boys and girls, that question again, if you look at this question, it's similar to one question that we did before today in the very same lesson. Okay, that is why I'm saying, and this was taken from a different province. So that is why I'm saying the examiner, in some cases, they might not be straightforward with their questions. They will try to be very tricky because they know that there are certain things that you were doing on daily basis in the classroom. So they will try to trick you as well. So if we look at this one, it's again, we've got the formula mean equals to sum of values divided by number of values. Same procedure. If you look at this, the mean is given. We know the number of values. How many values are there? In this case, if we use in 2021, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's actually 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9 of them, including P. Okay? Don't make a mistake and say there are 8, because we still have to find the value of P. So therefore, we have to count that P. So it means we're going to add up everything. So in this case, it's the mean, which is 260,136 equals to. Then I know that everything will be over 9. Okay. Now to avoid, but we are not saying you shouldn't do it. If you want to do it, you are welcome to do it, and it is actually safer. So in this case, I'm just worried about the space. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add everything on my calculator and write it down. Because in this case, for the sum of the values, it means I have to add up all this. I have to say 105,894, 105,894 plus 123,990 plus 243,843 plus 227,448 plus 384,216 384,216, 441,067, 259,143, and 196,968. I have to add all of them. I have to add all of them. So if I take my calculator, you can also use your calculator and make sure that you are using the correct column. So 105,894 plus 123,990 plus 243,843 plus 227,448 plus 384,216 plus 441,067 plus 259,143 plus 196,968. So after adding up all those 8 values, I'm getting 100 and let me see, I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I made a mistake somewhere. Okay, let me just add it again. Okay, because I'm getting way smaller numbers. So it's 105. Maybe I missed one value. 105,894, 105,894 plus 123,990 plus 243,843, then plus 227,448 plus 384,216 216 plus 441,441,067, and then plus 259,143, and then we've got plus 196,968, 968. Okay, so I'm getting, okay, let me check. I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm getting, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm getting 1 million. Okay, 1,982,569. So if I add up all the values, I'm getting 1,982,569. I hope you are also getting the correct, the same value. Then remember, it must be plus P. So for this one, instead of showing those plus, because it is actually safer to do it in that way. You could see that with the first attempt, I might have missed one value there, okay? Then I could see that something is wrong, so I had to do it again. Especially if you are working with big numbers, it's very, very important that you need to focus. So from this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply. Remember the other one, we also cross multiply. So I'm going to take this, I'm cross multiply, take with this one, and then I'll cross multiply with this one. If I take this, okay, I multiply by 1, I will still get the same thing. I will still get 1,982,569. Then it's plus P, it's equals to, now let's see, I take 260,136, and then I multiply it by 9, and then I get, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I get 2,341,000 and then 224. Okay, this is what I'm getting. Okay, I took this that is on the right hand side, I multiply with what is on the bottom. This must be over 1. Okay, so I'm getting the same thing. Then I take 9, I multiply by 260,136, I get 2,341,000. Then I will say therefore P equals to, now I'm taking this to the other side, then I get 2,341,224 minus 1,982,569. Okay, sorry about the space there. 2,341,224 minus 1,982,569. So I'm just going to subtract minus 1,982,569. Okay, then the answer is, the value of P is 358,655. 358,655. 358,000, it's now the value of P. Okay. Now, boys and girls, the idea behind this question is just to show you that in terms of mean, there's another way of asking this question. Instead of calculating the mean, they give you the mean and they ask you to calculate the missing value. So please just be careful. And it's not only with this mean, you saw the one about the range. And it can also be the same thing with the interquartile range and so on and so on. Okay, then the next question is, 101 schools in Mpumalanga are mathematics, sciences, technology academies. The Department of Basic Education projected that the number of entries for physical sciences in 2022 would be more than 215,000 if it is increased by 10% from 2021. verify showing all calculation whether the statement is correct. So for this question, we just have to look at the number in 2021 fiscal sciences. So fiscal sciences is 196,968. Okay, so from 2020, in 2020 it was 174,310. It increased to 196,968, and that was an increase of 22,658. Okay, now according to the given information, they say if the number of 2021 increases by 10%, if that number of 2021 increases by 10%, the number will be more than 215,000. Now we know that we need to increase 196,000. We've got 196,968. Now we want to increase it by 10%. There's more than one way of doing this. Some learners will start by calculating 10%. Okay, 10% of 196,968. So you say 10 divided by 100. Okay, 10% is the same as 10 over 100. 10 over 100 multiplied by 196,968. So I'm getting 19696.8. So it means the number is going to increase by 19,696.8, because we know that this is the number of people. We shouldn't worry about the decimal. We'll worry about the decimal when we get to the final answer. So it means for 2022, in 2022, we are now going to have 196,968 plus 19,696.8. So because it's going to increase by 10%, and that 10% is 19,000. So then I'm taking this, I'm adding 196,968 plus 196,968. Okay, so it's 196,968 plus 19,696.8. I'm getting 216,664.8. And then we know that even if they had to say calculate the number, you can't leave it in decimal form. So in this case, you can say it's 216,664, or you can say 216,665, as long as you don't leave it as a decimal number. Okay, but have we answered the question? They say verify, show, or calculate whether the statement is correct. The Department of Education projected that the number of entries in 2022 will be more than 215,000. So it is indeed more than 215,000, because we've got 216,000. Then it's very important that you have to indicate that the statement is valid. So statement is correct. Sorry, this case is the statement. So the Department of Basic Education statement is correct, because indeed the number is more than 215,000. Okay, then the next question is BMI. BMI is used to determine the weight status of a person. An educator used the BMI growth chart below to determine the weight status of girls at school. Use the information above to answer the questions that follow. Boys and girls, I'm sure you also did this part of data handling. Okay, remember, this can be in paper 1 and also in paper 2. Okay, so if you don't find it in paper 1, chances are you might also find it in paper 2. These are the growth charts. Then for 4.1, they say an 11-year-old girl's BMI value is on the 55th percentile curve. Determine her BMI value. So you can see that on this graph, okay, what is indicated here, it's the age. Okay, so age in years and month. Okay, so you guys see here there's 3, 6, 7, 8, and so on. Then they say on the 85%, so this is 11, so I can see that 11 years is here, so I must go up until I touch the curve of the 85th percentile. So when I go up, I can see that this is my 85th percentile. Okay, this is my 85th percentile, and then on the same level, what is the BMI? I see 20. So I see 20. So I see 20 in this case. So 20 is the BMI, 20 kilogram per square meter. Okay, you must make sure that you've got a ruler and a pencil to be able to interpret or find answers on the growth chart or on any growth chart. Then we've got 4.2, explain what it means if a girl has a BMI age relationship that is plotted on 65th percentile curve on the growth chart. Okay, so explain what it means if a girl has a BMI for age relationship that is plotted on the 65th percentile. Now we need to understand what we mean by a person being on a certain percentile. If, let's say, for instance, I need to arrange the marks of your control test for term 3, you have written a control test and then there's about 20 of you in the classroom. Now I'm arranging the marks. Then when I'm arranging the marks, I realize that one of you is exactly in the middle. It's exactly in the middle. Being in the middle means you are a median, meaning you are quartile 2. So that is the middle mark. The middle mark means half of the class either got the same mark as you or less, or half of the class either got the same mark as you or more. So you are in the middle. We can simply say if you are on the 50th percentile, if you are a median, if you are quartile 2, it simply means half of the class got the same mark as yours or less, or half of the class got the same mark as yours or more. So 50th percentile means 50% of the class got the same mark or less. 50% of the class got the same mark or more. So in this case, if we say you are on the 65th percentile, what is the percentage below? Now the percentage below will be 65% and below. Or what is the percentage above? 35%. If it's 90%, if you are on a 90th percentile, what is the percentage above? The percentage above is 10%, and the percentage below it's 90%. If you are on the 20th percentile, the percentage above is 80% and the percentage below is 20%. So if someone is on the 65th percentile, we say all the girls of the same age, in this case, all the girls of the same age have got, 65% of them have, 65% of the girls have got a BMI that is either the same or lower than this girl. So the girl is on the 65th percentile. So 65% of the girls of the same age have got a BMI that is either the same as this girl or lower. Then we say, what about the percentage above is 35%. Then 35% of the girls of the same age, they either have the same BMI or higher BMI. So if I write it in simple terms, I will say 65% of the girls of the same age have the same BMI as the girl or lower BMI. Okay, 65, because this girl is only 65. Then, if you don't want to put it in this way, you're now going to look at the percentage above. What is the percentage above 65%? It's 35%. Now we can say 35% of the girls of the same age have the same BMI as the girl or higher BMI. Okay, so you need to get it right. So that is how we can explain it. It's very, very important. If they have to ask you, what does it mean if a girl is on the 50th percentile, it's 50-50. On 90th percentile, it's 10% above, 90% below. So you also need to go and check this type of questions as well. Now, the next one is a 16-year-old girl has a BMI of 27.1. So in this case, I've got 24, I've got 26. Okay, so 27 will be somewhere here. Okay, 27.1. Then the girl is 16 years. So here's my 16 years. Sorry, I know that the graph might not be that clear, but this is where I'm getting my 16 years. So I must go up. Sorry, it must be a straight line. And in this case, it's going to be at the intersection of 27, which is BMI, where it intersects with the age of 16. So there is the write down only the letter that represents 16-year-old's weight status. That is where I find the weight status. 16 years, BMI is 27.1. So 27.1 I estimate. If you look at this, it means risk of overweight. Okay, the moment it's above this, it's risk of overweight. So the girl is now at risk of being overweight. So risk of overweight will be the answer. Okay, then 4.4, a girl has a BMI that lies on the 95th percentile. Advise the girl on possible lifestyle. So if the girl will be on in the 95th percentile, 95th percentile will still be here because this is 97. Any girl, okay, who's here, okay, 95th percentile. So the girl will be a risk of overweight. So if you are at risk of overweight, so it means maybe you are not exercising or you are not eating healthy food. So I advise this girl on possible lifestyle change that she can make to decrease her BMI value. So the girl can either start exercising, okay, or the girl can start eating healthy food, okay, so that maybe the weight will be less or the BMI will be reduced. Remember, in this case, the less the BMI, the less the weight, the less the BMI. Okay, then the next question is study the information in the table alongside the answer and answer the questions that follow. This is 5.1. It was taken from GP paper 1 June 2025. Is the data represented in points, column, continuous or discrete? Explain your answer. Now this one is about continuous or discrete. Okay, now what type of data is discrete? When we say it's discrete, it means the data was collected by counting. Okay, it was collected by counting. So in other words, in this case, they have counted the points, and continuous is measurement. If we say this is a continuous data is the type of data that is collected by measuring. So if you measure anything, you can either get a decimal value or a whole number. But when you count, you will never get a decimal number. So when you count, you will always get a whole number. Okay, so this one, it's whole numbers, and then you can see that the points were collected by counting. So this one is a discrete. It's a discrete. Explain your answer. The data was collected by counting total points. Okay, the examiner just wanted to check if you understand the difference between continuous and discrete data. So you just say this is a discrete because the information or the data was collected by counting the total points. Okay, then number 5.2, calculate the value of A if the range of the points is 331. Boys and girls, that question again, where I said it's some of those questions that will not be straightforward. What do we know about the range? The range is the highest value minus the lowest value. Calculate the value of A if the range of the points is 331. Okay, so if the range of the points is 331, so in this case we are given the range which is 331, and then we have to find the value of A. Okay, now for this one, if we look at the information that is given, you can see that the points have already been arranged. The points have already been arranged from the highest to the lowest. So it simply means A is the lowest value. So in other words, the highest value will be 362, and then we subtract A. It's exactly similar to the one that we did before. Then what do? I take A to the other side, it becomes positive. I then have to indicate the positive, and then I've got 362, which was already on the right hand side. Then I subtract 331. 331, when it goes to the other side, it becomes negative. Then you just take your calculator, 362 minus 331. Then I get 31. And then indeed, the value of A is the lowest value. Okay, that was number 5.2. And then number 5.3 is determine the interquartile range for the number of points scored by Formula One drivers. Determine the interquartile range. Now we know that for the interquartile range, what do we need? We need to know what quartile 3 is and what quartile 1 is. So the only way that we can determine interquartile range is to first determine quartile 3 and also quartile 1. Okay, so where do we start? Okay, let's arrange this. From these values, we knew that the value of A we have already calculated is 31. So we can say 31, then 62, 150, 177, 189, 240, 251, 291, 315, and then 362. The other thing that is very important is after rewriting them down, you need to count. If we check in the table, there are 10. So let's check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are still 10. We didn't leave any number out. Then now we need to determine quartile 3 and quartile 1. But there's no way that we can determine quartile 1 and quartile 3 before we could determine quartile 2. We need to start with quartile 2. If we've got this, so I know that in this case, I'll just say, what will be my quartile 2, which is the median? So cancel this, that one, this one, and that one, this one, and that one. You can see that I've got two values in the middle now. So I'll say this is my quartile 2, which is 189 plus 240 divided by 2. Okay, then I've got 189 plus 240, and then press the equal sign, divided by 2, then I get 214,5. 214.5. Now this is where quartile 2 is. Then I'm going to check on the left hand side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now quartile 1, it's now the middle number of the values. The middle number of the values on the left hand side. In this case, this will be my quartile 1, because if you look at it, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's only 150 in the middle. And then on the right hand side, I still have 240, 251, 291, 315, 362. Then you can see that the middle number of the values on the right hand side is 291. So this 291 will now be my quartile 3, and this is quartile 1. Then I say, therefore, IQR is quartile 3 minus quartile 1, and then quartile 3, the value of quartile 3 is 291, and then quartile 1 is 150, and then if I say 291 minus 150, I get 141. So there's 141. Okay, so that is how you do it. Remember, with IQR or interquartile range, you must first determine quartile 3 and quartile 3. But obviously, there is no way that you can determine quartile 1 and quartile 3 before you find quartile 2, which is the median. Okay, now boys and girls, I can see that time is not on my side, so it's just the last question about probability. This one is determine the probability as a decimal of selecting a Formula 1 driver who drives Ferrari. Okay, now if I look at this one, the car models, I've got one Ferrari, second one, and then I've got another Ferrari there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So probably it will be 3/10. But 3/10, it's not enough according to the question, because the question says as a decimal. If you take your calculator, then you say 3 divided by 10, you get 0.3. 0.3. Okay, so in decimal form, you get an additional mark there. So that was number 5.4. So boys and girls, unfortunately, time is not on my side. I think I still had one more question, and then I can also indicate that the next lesson will be on the 4th. Remember, you're going to write paper 1 on the 5th of September. So on the 4th of September in the afternoon, there's going to be a revision. Same time, there's going to be a revision for paper 1. And then again on the 5th, which will be Friday, after you wrote paper 1, there's going to be another revision lesson in preparation for paper 2 the following Monday. Let me take this opportunity and say thank you very much for watching this lesson. I hope you have learned a lot in terms of the revision, and then I'll hope to see you next time. Goodbye.